handheld cell phone on April 3rd, 1973, created by Martin Cooper with the Motorola Company. This is the first cell phone handheld created with subscriber equipment. Since then, cellular networks have expanded, such as AT&T. But prior to that, in 1968, 62,000 people were subscribed to the cell phone carriers. This was viewed as a luxury item by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, according to Thomas Hazelett, professor of economics in the John E. Walker Department of Economics at Clemson University. But since then, in 1992, by International Business Machines, also known as IBM, they developed the smartphone Simon, which was created 15 years prior to Apple's first smartphone. But since then, cell phone ownership increased by 91% from 2000 to 2017. This was conducted by a research with 2,252 adults by the Pew Research Center, conducted by Lee Ryan. But how does cell phone use contribute to the long-term effects of addiction? According to Gabriel Russo from the Investigation Institution of IH2, he said, if the internet was initially the technology addiction of par excellence, the cell phone soon emerged as a source of potential addiction behavior. With addictiveness and attachment to the consumer society, new technology is developing, and this is allowing people to have a sense of dependence on cell phone use. But this then leads to the consumer society, because with the consumer society, there's a form of dopamine created, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter that expresses through emotion. With this dopamine, this triggers this cycle of addiction of the needing and necessity of gratification. Developed and talked about Simon Sneak, a British author who studied at the University of London. He talks about how dopamine goes through this cycle of addiction through cell phones with the calming of the human hand. But why so? In Extrasensory Perception by Jurish Duvion and Joseph A. Producer from the Scientific American, they talk about the Moore's Law. And Moore's Law talks about how computer microchips and through microeconomics increase every 2 years, developing new innovations. And they said they keep getting smaller, cheaper, and more powerful, as shown in 2000, the invention of the computer, and then to the 2010 of the smartphone. This involves with microeconomics design and wireless communications network. With the second stakeholder of the economy relations, it begins with the classes, from low, middle, to high. With the low, we're starting working for the need of a necessity. We need these things. We need a cell phone just for communication through wireless network, just by a cell phone call. With the middle class, we are pushing for more of the higher innovations, such as an iPhone X or like a Galaxy Samsung S9. Once you reach to the high class, there's a need of these necessities, but with the abuse of it, which can contribute to cycles of addiction, because the needing of gratification towards these cell phones, there's more of a way to get through this addiction. But not all people are like that. According to Alex Mayasi, and the writer of Price Economics, he talks about increasing poverty can have the power to construct the way people can abuse possessions, which eventually cause addiction due to the economy around society. This can be fixed with two solutions. The Baudrillard's theory, the theory of consumption rather than production. This was formed by the concept of Marx's concept, the use of value. This expression is to show how people are abusing the value of objects such as the cell phone, which was just for creating for phone calls, rather than using it for social media, for applications, to know who you are through like Facebook. But another way This can be through behavioral approaches. With behavioral approaches, by John Garl, PD, we can fix these danger signs because with cell phones, there increase of bills, there's increase with irrational reactions. Just by 20% from 2000 to 2005, people were paying about $500 each month for just a cell phone bill. But this can be fixed by tracking your amount of cell phone use that you use and committing to changing this and to stopping the cycle. There can be no connection to the phone, which can help evolve a greater presence in other people's lives, and you can just by turning it off. But in conclusion, from evaluating perspectives on how cell phones reflect on how addiction takes place, it begins on how the economy dominates addiction through social classes and the views of dopamine on humans. And this can be fixed with the cycle of our habits. Thank you.
Thank you. So my first question is, how valid and reliable are the sources you used, and how do you know, and which sources just did not work?
So to know how valuable my sources were, I had to make sure with the background information of each person, such as Alex Mayasi. He was a price economics and he graduated from Stanford. But by doing so, I had to make sure I had to go to full more depth on how he studied it and how reliable this person was. So I went through research of going through other sources of him that was written, and then some research that I did not use was just regular biased data from journalists that I've searched through from news and from newspapers, because some of those people weren't actually reliable. And yeah.
Thank you. And second, what additional questions emerged from your research, and why are these questions important?
So some questions that, actually one question that I was pretty confused on was I needed more background information on how the percentages increased. Just because through a research data from the test conducted by Lee Ryan by Pew Research Center, it was more confusing towards me, so I had to find more of these tests that were conducted during this time period, because I was focusing more on the millennials and the consumer society at this point because of the difference of age throughout the years. So I had to question whether or not the difference of age could affect this problem, and the difference of how people were consuming these cell phones and consuming in the society.